In today's Leeds news, praise for midfield duo. Number 10 wants out. Bamford exit tipped by insider. And good news ahead of Blackburn. Morning folks, Jer here at The View, Thursday morning the 28th of November with your Leeds United news. Hope you're all having a really good week so far. 3 points last night and probably Leeds' most impressive performance of the season. I've seen the comments online around, if that's boring football, we'll watch this all day. I think there's a very big difference in how Leeds played last night versus the Plymouth game and versus the QPR game. Leeds not only dominant in possession but created multiple chances in the first and second half, where against QPR that wasn't the case. So very different games and very different kinds of performances, and that's the kind of performance I want to see from Leeds. Second half being more in control, I'm alright with that as long as you're still trying to go forward and make chances, which Leeds didn't. Realistically, Leeds could have won that game by 4 or 5 goals. So a really good day at the office. But there is some news floating around today, some praise for the existing players as well as possible players becoming available for Leeds United in January, and maybe even a player forcing his way out of the club come January. And we'll start off though today with praise for the midfield duo, and Leeds United's midfield has been ticking along quite nicely, and any thoughts of defensive fragility on the back of Ilya Gruev and Ethan Ampadu going out injured have all very much been put to bed and are very much behind Leeds United at this point. Tanaka managed another really impressive performance last night against Luton Town, having 114 successful passes out of 120, about 91% in that one, and was only beaten in that bracket by Leeds United captain Pascal Struijk, who had a phenomenal game last night. But Joe Rothwell has been excellent for Leeds United as well, and specifically last night, and his tempo-changing runs have been really important to Leeds at moments where the game can maybe get a bit pedestrian or a little bit flat, and he can really increase the tempo for Leeds United. Luton Town last night didn't lay a glove on Leeds United. They didn't get to come through the middle of the park at all, which shows what Tanaka and Rothwell did very, very well. And the only time they really came through the middle was after Joe Rothwell had come off the park. Former Leeds United manager Neil Redfern has been lavishing praise on both of the midfield and has singled them out for some praise amongst the entire squad, and has described them as elite level when it comes to their performances. And on the game and how they played so far this season, Redfern said the following: "Before that, there was a little bit of hit and miss, whoever took the corners or set plays. But I think what you've got there in midfield player, that's a good technician. He's a beautiful striker of the ball, whether he's spraying passes or putting set play in. I think he's really excelling as a good foil for Tanaka, and Tanaka a good foil for Rothwell. I think their understanding of the game, how they build it from the back and through the midfield, is top drawer. It's elite level midfield play. And I think Daniel realises that they've been a massively important part for Leeds, and it goes to show the depth the Leeds have in that midfield area, losing 2 very important players like Gruev and Ampadu, and being able to fill them successfully and possibly in some ways slightly better than what the data suggests and what the previous 2 were doing. I mean, it shows the strength and depth that Leeds really have this season. Look at the wide area as well last night, the substitutions being made, and there's a huge amount of quality and depth there. So it's great to see. They've been brilliant. I don't think Joe Rothwell gets as much praise as he deserves. I think because he's on loan, he gets forgotten about. He's the first sub off and all that kind of stuff. But I think he's been really, really important for Leeds this season. Now let's move on to January and talk about a player that could potentially come in. And in the summer, Leeds United had a last-minute dash to try and get a number 10 into the club after Daniel Farke added the number 10 to the additional 4 players he was looking for in the final weeks. And unfortunately, in the end, that didn't happen, and Leeds had to settle for the returning Brendan Aronson into that position. Well, the winter window's not that far away, and some developments have happened that may make a player that Leeds wanted before now available again in the January window. One player named in the summer that Leeds missed out on was Fabio Carvalho, the former Liverpool attacker, and he moved to Brentford in the end. But things haven't gone particularly well then, and then recent development means that that player himself might now be available again for Leeds United. The player's father had publicly criticised the club and told his son in a now deleted Instagram reply to leave Brentford, saying, "Son, you have to leave this club." The player has twice turned down Leeds United, but Daniel Farke has shown in the past that if he likes a player, he's willing to go back and get them. He tried to get Buendia, a player he had at Norwich and likes as well, and he brought out Tanaka in the second year after trying to get him last season as well. So there's room there for that if he likes the player, but things haven't, as I said, worked out particularly well for Carvalho so far, and it could be a case that the Bees decide to cut their involvement with the player after some public criticism, which never goes down particularly well. Whether Leeds want a player that comes with off the field baggage, not saying that there's a lot of baggage here, but we know from Leeds history that when a player's father gets involved on social media and publicly starts criticising the club, it never goes down particularly well. It's an ill-advised strategy by most parents. They should leave the football to the football people, but it doesn't go down particularly well. But what it does mean is that Brentford might look at moving the player on in January, and it leaves the door open for Leeds to move in for a player they've twice tried to sign, and maybe give Leeds that extra body they need going into the end of the season. And for me personally, if he's a player you can get in even on a temporary deal, I think you should try and do that. He was excellent for the whole last season. The Championship, he would add more to what Leeds have. It'd be a nice player to bring in. The baggage off the pitch needs to be addressed and talked about and see if it's worth doing. Dennis Farker talks an awful lot about character, and that's going to be part of that. Moving on to a potential exit from the club, and whether it happens in January or the end of the season, there's been an awful lot of talk about the future of Patrick Bamford, and he probably won't be happy with the amount of minutes he's getting at the moment, or the fact that he's very, very clearly third choice striker and not able to get off the bench in a very dominant 3-0 win at home for Leeds United last night. And with Leeds sitting top of the table, he can't really argue what the strikers are doing. The team's ticking along nicely and it's moving in the right direction, so that won't go down well. Talks of an exit of Joe Gelhardt to go off and find some form, as well as a potential incoming number 9 in January, means that probably won't sit well with Bamford either, and he may be looking at the entirety of his time at the club. But according to some insider information, Leeds will probably wait until the summer to move Patrick Bamford on. Bamford has yet to start a game for Leeds United this season or score, and has only had 6 appearances from the bench in the opening 17 games for Leeds. According to the report, the player wants more than a bit part role at the club, but a move in January seems unlikely based on the player's current contractual situation and his wages. Paul Robinson says that he believes that if Bamford doesn't want out of the club and is happy to sit on the bench, then Leeds will wait until the summer to address the player's situation. However, if the player himself does want to go and does want to play minutes, Leeds will be in a position to negotiate or structure a deal with him around the wages to allow him to go off and play in January should he want it. And it will all come down to what he decides that he wants to do. Does he want to sit on the bench and pick up his wages? Or does he want, at this point in his career, 31 years of age, go and play some regular football? And that will be decided. He is very clearly not the number 1 striker for Leeds United, or 2. There's been recent criticism of Joe Pirro, but if you look at Joe Pirro's stats, he is the best goal and assist player Leeds have so far this season, and has clocked up with some of the Championship's best numbers per minute as well. So the eye test isn't always the best test. Sometimes players are doing far more than we think they are. So for me, if I was Paddy Bamford, I would be very much looking at moving on in January if he could get a move away from the club. I think that ship has sailed for him now, and I think it'd be great to see him go off and get some football for himself. I never like seeing players sitting on a bench twiddling their thumbs. So if you can't get a game here, go and get a game somewhere else. Why not? And then heading into the Blackburn game, some updates on this one as well. And Blackburn last night put a stop to Middlesbrough's current run of form, beating them and keeping a clean sheet as well in the match. And they are next up for Leeds United on Saturday. Very quick turnaround for this one, but some injury news, maybe bad news for Blackburn, but maybe good news for Leeds United at the same time. Blackburn manager John Eustace has revealed that Andy Vyman, Arnar Sigurdsson and Balaz Tote will all miss the game with Leeds United this Saturday, and Eustace is doing a very good job at Blackburn, and nobody's really surprised at that, maybe except the Birmingham City owners. But with a really quick turnaround to face Leeds on Saturday, he would have wanted the bulk of his squad intact in order to maybe catch a slightly complacent Leeds on the back of 3 wins in a row. That looks likely to be swinging back in Leeds' favour now, with Leeds having players returning in Junior Firpo and Blackburn missing some key players. The form guide as well, it could be a good position for Leeds United going away from Elland Road this Saturday to place Blackburn in what will always and has always been Leeds' biggest away allocation of the season. We'll have half the ground probably, so it won't necessarily feel like an away game, and you'd hope Leeds can just knock another 3 points onto that and really start to pull. The momentum is starting to build. I think everyone can feel it. We're starting to see some good performances coming in now, as well as starting to be a little bit more clinical in front of goal, which was needed. So all good and all's well that ends well for Leeds United, folks. That will be it for me today. We'll try and get a review out of the game last night tonight with some people. Keep an eye out for that this evening. And I'll be back in the morning for the Leeds United news and a preview then ahead of Saturday's game. Back-to-back stuff this week. It's non-stop. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. See you then. Bye.